We get tons of questions from buyers, and it seems to be the same questions kind of over and over again, right?
It does, yes.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to tackle some of those questions here and answer them all in one spot.
That's right. Well, maybe not all of them, but
maybe not all of them. Yeah.
Most of the ones that we get, we'll certainly
Let's just do the top 100.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
The first thing we tell buyers when they sit down is to figure out what your budget. Because there's a couple things going on. Lenders are going to meet with you. There's certain guidelines that you have to meet for, let's say, an FHA or conventional loan. A lot of times that's going to be more maybe than you want to spend on a house. You might be approved for way more than you want to spend. So it really kind of comes back to not what I can afford, but what is your budget.
Correct.
What you're approved for may be one thing, but certainly let's sit down and see what your budget is so that you're comfortable. You don't want to be house poor.
So what you've done in the past is buyers have said, hey, I'm comfortable with $1,500 a month. Right. And you've kind of backed into those numbers, even though the lender may say, well, you're approved for XYZ, and that would be like a $3,000 a month payment. You know, they still want to go on vacation. They still want to go out to dinner and
That's right.
do those fun things and not, like you just said, not to be house poor.
Yes, that is the
So, yes, we can help you with that. What do you think about the pre-approval letter?
I think it's a great idea.
Yes.
We obviously sometimes will meet buyers kind of on the cuff. If they call us out on a sign or something, there is an opportunity to meet them for the first time and then have that discussion sometimes at the house. Our preference is to have a buyer's meeting with them, have a consultation to sit down and answer a lot of these questions before we jump into looking at homes, because we don't want them to be disappointed thinking that they're looking at a certain neighborhood or a certain house only to find out that it's not really in their budget, that they're not approved for that number. So to make things better for them and for everybody involved, let's talk to that lender, get your pre-approval, figure out what that budget is first.
Because especially if they fall in love with the house when we're showing it to them and they're like, we're ready to make an offer, but then they haven't gone through that process with the lender. And that it is a little bit of a process. You know, there's paperwork you got to get to them and things you have to find that you might not have readily available.
That's right.
So we definitely want you guys to put your best foot forward when you're ready to make an offer.
That's right. Buyers do get glary-eyed sometimes and they fall in love with a house only to find out, oh yeah, no, it's not quite going to fit our budget. So
correct. Commission, the big question.
Yeah,
buyer's agent
lots of
commission.
changes for that.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah. You want to tackle that one?
Sure. You know, the law that came out last year said that we couldn't post a buyer's agent commission or some sort of compensation in our multiple listing service.
Correct.
That doesn't mean that the sellers can't still pay some of that, all of that, or part of that. But we do sign a buyer's agency agreement that says, hey, based on the work that we're going to do, here's the commission that we're going to expect. And that could be a dollar amount or percentage. Usually it's a percentage. And so there's another part of that says, hey, yeah, this is what we're going to get paid. However, we can go to the seller when we're making an offer and say, would you be willing to pay that commission for this buyer and include that in the sale? That's still the way it's always been done. And it still works pretty well today.
Right, and it's always been negotiable. It's always been one of those things that's been negotiable. And I think it kind of scared people thinking, oh no, I can't afford help when I'm purchasing a home. And I will say, most sellers, even today, have been willing to offer a commission to a buyer, which has been great and helpful to the new buyer. So it's definitely not a scary thing as sometimes the media has portrayed it to be, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, we can talk through all of that. And just like any other cost, I mean, there's ways that we can manage that as part of the transaction.
Correct, yes. You know, when a buyer starts looking for a home, there's tons of steps. Steps at the beginning when we first start the process, steps when we're going under contract, steps when we're almost at the closing table. So
that we know about. The buyers don't always know what those steps are. They're thinking, hey, let's just go find a house, right?
And then we're going to buy it and we're done.
Right. Well, and we've already talked about one of the key ones is to get that pre-approval, talk to that lender and then make sure that all those ducks are in a row. And then let's sit down and talk about what your needs are, what your wants are.
And can you afford it?
That's right. Let's find out, specifically really what you're looking for, because based on our experience, almost 20 years into this, we know when they tell us what they're looking for and what their specifics are, what neighborhoods that's probably going to match that pretty closely, right?
Yes. And then of course, we go over the paperwork with you when you want to write a contract, and then it's home inspection, and we'll walk you through that. There's little steps in there. And then once we get under contract, and how we'll help you through when you're talking to your lender and getting that paperwork over there to them. So, you know,
Lots of things.
Yes, there are steps, and you know, we could sit here and talk about it all day long, but I will say, when you kind of get into the weeds with us a little bit, we'll walk you through those steps, step by step, so that you understand everything, and you know, it's a smooth ride.
Yeah, there's lots of moving pieces
that we help you.
That's right. Even after you go on a contract, that's a big part of it. So yeah, we certainly will sit down and explain all that to you, and we're there the whole time, all the way to the closing table.
That's right.
Typically, we tell people the normal escrow period, which is that time from the time that you kind of write an offer to closing, is somewhere in that 30 to 45 days. So we have to back into it. So, you know, once we know that time window and you know when you want to move, it also, there's some time on the front end. I mean, how many houses do you think it's going to take you to look at before you make that decision?
Are you a 50 house looker? Or
Yeah, hopefully not. We're going to narrow that down. So we want, you know, that process generally has been 15 to 30 days, let's call it.
Yes.
You know, a little bit different from, you know, the COVID years, we'll call them, where, you know, it took 3 hours to find the house that, you know, everybody else wanted. A little bit different. So let's say 30 days on the front end, 30 to 45 days from contract to close. So 60 to 90 days.
Yeah. So we could go up to 3, even maybe 6 months, depending on, you know, the timing and when the sellers want to move out. But really, it's up to you. How fast are you going to find a house?
And if you're looking for a particular house, you know, if you want to be in a specific neighborhood, or if you want acreage, you know, that could take 1 to 2 years. I mean, it just depends on, you know, the type of property you're looking for.
But primarily that 60 to 90 days.
Well, I'll say the technical part of it is
the technical definition by Steve.
When there are more sellers than there are buyers, then it's a buyer's market, right? Because the buyers have the leading edge on that. Sellers are wanting to attract those particular buyers, and so the buyers have the upper hand. So there's a lot more negotiation. We're kind of transitioning closer to that now. What we've been in the last 5 years has been more of a seller's market. There's been lower inventory, there's been more buyers, there's been, you know, lower rates in the last few years, and that created a seller's market, and the sellers had the upper hand. They could ask premium for their homes. Many of them were getting over list price, and they really were in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's a supply and demand business, just like anything else.
I will say that I wouldn't be there as a home inspector. Let's just say that. When you're walking in the door, you're not a home inspector.
As an agent, we don't wear
that hat. As an agent, we don't wear that hat. As for the consumer walking in and, you know, does this house fit our needs? Are we trying to make it fit our needs? Or does it fit our needs when we walk in? There's some things you can compromise on. But then, you know, we would take a look at major systems and things like that. Things that make you feel comfortable. What else would you think?
Well, the other thing, you know, I'm a numbers guy, so at the time that I'm looking through there, is it evaluating it compared to what something else sold down the street? Is it priced real well? What's the last price that it sold for? Does the square footage that we have on the records seem to match the square footage of the house? I mean, there's, you know, so a little more analytical things on my end, as opposed to, oh, that's a pretty rug.
I look at the pretty rugs.
But just keep in mind, a lot of times, you know, that pretty rug's not going to stay in the house.
That's right.
You know, a lot of people, and we see that a lot of times, you know, just going on a sidetrack here, that well furnished, and, you know, that's why model homes are so great, but well furnished, and homes that have a lot of unique furniture, decorations, that sort of thing, sometimes can be a distraction because you can't overlook some of that stuff.
And I think one thing that we help buyers with is sometimes we walk in and there's really bold paint colors. You know, talking buyers through that, you know, that's a can of paint. We can fix that. You know, you might have grandmother's dining room table that you are going to take it. Will this fit in the space that you're looking for? So, you know, fitting your furniture in there. Will grandmama's dining room table fit in this room, or it won't? You know, we've had people buy homes for a couch, for a dining room table, for a hutch. You know, they want it to match. So those are things that we can help you with when you're touring a home.
Yeah, and the location, obviously, what's it close by? I had a buyer that did not want to hear a train at his house. Well, not hearing a train means a lot of things to different people.
Here in Alabama, yes.
Certainly not being next to the railroad track is one thing, but not hearing a train, that's a little challenging sometimes. But
here in central Alabama, for sure.
Yeah. And so, knowing some of those things that you're looking for, like if you want to be close to a park, or you don't want to be near water, or you do want to be near water. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can take into consideration. Does your house need to be facing a certain direction? I mean, there are, a lot of people that like that aspect of it. So those are all thing that we can help, kind of iron out if we know and ask the right questions.
All right, well, this was just part one of what questions we have from buyers right before we get into buying a home and right before you go under contract. So stay tuned for part two of this series of just the questions that buyers have after they get under contract. Okay, and as always, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at P4 Realty Partners.
That's right, hit that subscribe button.